have an idea. Yeah. So we're going to be installing 5 perimeter lights currently, more to be determined down the road. But we're going to have 1 right over the driver door. We're going to have 2 at the rear, as we see the rear on the rear. And then we're going to have 2 on the passenger side, 1 near the rear, and then another one over the door. So 5 in all right now, more to be determined later. I'm going to get busy putting this one up, and then I'll tell you after we're done how we did it.
Squirt MEK squirt. Don't open it up too much. I think there's a little wire over here that somebody fucked up and put in the wire. Now the Auxbeam is really, really cool. Totally solid state. Takes a lot of heat. Unbelievable. Stand by for the sponsor.
Okay. And really quickly, we're going to talk about today's video sponsor, Auxbeam. So Auxbeam is a company who makes high-end off-road accessory equipment like parts for auto vehicles, LED lights, racks, and a whole plethora of other things at affordable pricing. I was fortunate enough that Auxbeam sent me not 1, but 2 items: the control panel and the LED light bar. So the control panel is a really cool system. It runs on a solid state versus relay, so it gets rid of all your wires. You just have these fuses, and it's really cool the way it works. For example, a relay is kind of like a switch. You have to toggle it on and off, and you have to make a connection, where solid state is pretty much consistent. And a really cool thing about this control panel is it also runs on Bluetooth. You can download the app. You can control your lights from not just the switch panel, but also from your phone. And then we have the big 52-inch light bar. That thing is a beast. It's going to light up the night. Airplanes could land wherever I was parked and turning on my lights. It's that serious. We're gonna get into the video today, and I'm gonna show you how to install both the switch panel and the light bar. Now, we're gonna be plugging a series of lights into the switch panel, but just for the video, we're plugging in the 1, and then we'll do another video later on down the road with all the other lights. We'll probably have about a total of 6 to 7 lights being used on this switch panel. It's gonna be crazy. All right, Polly. Polly says, thank you for tuning in for this sponsored video. Thanks, Auxbeam. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go ahead and hook up this RGB 8-gang multifunctional switch panel from Auxbeam. So let me show you some of the parts here, some of the components. Here, this is just the lid, but this should show you. In fact, I'll probably just pull up some images on the internet. But anyways, this is the case, and we can hook it up to a 12 volt or 24 volt system. It has a max of 60 amps, and depending on what voltage you hook it up to, it could do a max output of 600 watts, 12 volt, or 1200 watt, 24 volt. We're gonna be mounting this on top of my fuse panel underneath the hood here, the control panel, and we're gonna be hooking it up to the battery over here. And so I'm not hooking it up to my solar system because all these lights that it's going to be powering are going to be only used while driving when I'm, you know, off-road or parked or somewhere. So yeah, we're gonna hook it up to this battery and not the house batteries. What I wanted to mention, since it's gonna be under the hood on top of the switch panel, and I'll tell you why we're putting it on this side versus closer to the battery, since that's what it's being hooked up to. But anyways, the temperature, it can withstand negative 40 Celsius degrees up to, I believe, 105 Celsius degrees. So it can withstand cold and hot. So we don't have to worry about that. But the reason we're putting it on the driver's side versus the passenger side where the battery is because this wire here is going to come all the way inside and hook up to the panel that will allow me to turn on and off all the lights, and that's going to be on the driver's side. So I wanted to have a shorter route for the wire to travel to that versus shorter route to the battery, because I don't have to mess with that once we hook it up. So yep, we're gonna show you how we install that, and then we'll show you how it works. All right, let's get to it. Oh, and really quickly, before I forget, it also comes with a 60 amp breaker. So if it trips, but we're not gonna be using this. Instead of now having to run wires all the way to the battery, this first wire here that I'm showing you, that's where we're gonna hook the red wire. And the second wire over here is the ground, and we're gonna be able to hook the ground there. So that's going to save us from having to make our own wires, if you will, going from the driver to the passenger side all the way to the battery. Now we're going to hook those wires up. So we're almost done with all the wiring. We're just going over a few odds and ends. Before I start closing stuff off, for example, the control panel here, I'm gonna take this fabulous stuff here that my uncle gave me called BourgJr T9, created by Boeing. And what this is supposed to do is kind of create a water barrier or moisture barrier. So when things are getting hot, it's not building moisture, and we don't want that. So I'm just gonna apply it all through here on all electrical component. A little bit goes a long way. Yep. BourgJr, it's the best. All right, so now we've taken the cord that goes to the actual switch panel with the buttons and the red wire which supplies power, and we drilled a hole through the firewall, fed the wires through, which was a real pain. But a little trick, we have wires coming from the light bar up top that also need to go back out to that same hole. And instead of trying to figure out how to fit your big hand through a small space, just tape it to the wires you already pulled through. You got enough slack, pull them back through, and bada bing. So, all right, back to wiring. And just to show y'all, in case any of my internet troll warriors are out there, we are putting loom over the wire and sliding it through the hole, so we don't have to worry about the firewall eventually, from all the vibration of driving, cutting the wire and shorting it out. We've got loom, we're about to slide it back through. As you can see, we've done with this one here, because we've ran this in the past before for my housing, electrical housing system in the back. And now we're about to do the same thing here. And then once we get it in the hole, we'll put some RTV around the hole to keep it in place. All right, so leave me alone. So we've got the positive and the negative wire hooked up. I showed you that. Now we're about to mount this control panel, distribution box, fuse box on top of the other box. But before we do that, let's go ahead and jump in to what this is going to be powering. Can you see it? That's right, folks. That's a big ass light bar. It's just sitting up there right now. It's not permanently mounted. We're going to mount it to the roof deck front faceplate. We're going to have to take some boards off, screw it in, and route out around the boards, around the screws. Yeah. It's going to power that. Here in the next coming weeks, I've got something else coming up where I'll have some more light. And then it's going to have about 5 more lights that it's going to be powering, other than just that light bar up there. We're going to light up the night, folks. We're going to light up the night. Let's kind of jump into this light bar situation, because we got to wire it, and I want to show you how we're doing that. All right, let's do this. so here's the big light bar. We're gonna mount it, like I said, to this faceplate. But before we mount it, we need to make sure all of our wires are where they need to be. So we're gonna take this wire here, it comes out the side of the light, and route it through the top. These wires here are my wires for my antennas, for my radio and whatnot. But we're gonna run this on the inside, down the overhead storage from the passenger side over to the driver's side, and then down towards the dash through the engine bay. And we wanna make sure that we're gonna have room and that we're routing everything the most efficient way possible to the control panel, which I already showed you. So let's get to working on this. So we got it mounted, we just got to tighten the screws down, and then I'm going to route out a small little spot for the head of these screws because we did it backwards, so I'm not having to route out so much of the deck boards to fit the screws, and then I'll show you the final product. And here's where we have the display screen mounted right above the driver's seat, and we just hooked in the wires. As you can see, we now have it powered on. I've got one of the stickers for the LED light bar up top. I'll end up labeling all of this. You can change the color through any of the RGB color wheel colors available. Just read the manual, this little thing here, and it'll tell you how to do that. So we're about to program the light for this button here and test it out. All right, so here's the test. Going to see if we wired it correctly. All right. So a quick rundown, summary, if you will. So we have the LED light bar up top. A wire comes out from it with a connector on the end, kind of like a house plug almost, different type of plug. Ignore that. So the wire comes out of the light with a connector. We've got that connected, running inside to over my cargo area, all the way to the driver's side, which we then have the controller where you saw above my head, and then those wires and the LED light bar wires coming down around the door to the wiring harnesses that we have in there. Drilled a hole through the firewall, came through the firewall, attached the wires to the appropriate connections in the control panel, switch panel. We have it grounded, and we also have a wire running to the battery to the positive. And we didn't install the breaker it came with because I already have a breaker, 150 amp breaker installed. It comes with a 60 amp, but I already had a breaker. So we have it hooked into that as well. And you saw it all running. Well, there's been a lot of blood shed, particularly from Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill?
Yes, sir.
People haven't seen you in a while. Close it out.
Hey, good to see everybody. See you later.
Peace.